This is the Mets Postcast, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Behind a gem from Kodai Senga, the New York Mets defeat the A's by a final score of 8-0 to win their fourth straight series to pull their season record to 10-5. Welcome in to the Mets Postcast here on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel and on the Locked On Mets podcast feed. I am your Postcast host, Chris Schubert, here with you after each and every Mets game throughout the season. And the Mets, after a rough night last night and after some of the doom and gloom we've heard here in the live stream comments on these postcasts, the Mets win their fourth straight series and get to 10-5. You know what we are going to be talking about. You know what you are going to be talking about because for the first time this season, a Mets starting pitcher finished 7 innings. So let's talk about Kodai Senga.
This is what you'll be talking about.
I have in the title a masterclass from Kodai Senga. We'll get to the inner workings of that start, but let me just give you the raw numbers. 7 innings, 4 hits, no earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts on 79 pitches. His ERA for the season now sits at 1.06. He picks up the win to move to 2-1 on the season. Okay, those are the numbers. Those are the stats behind the start. But let's talk about the start itself because this is not one of those dominant performances where a starter goes out there and throws 7, 8 innings, allows 1 hit, 2 hits, strikes out 9 or 10. I think back to those DeGrom masterclasses that we all saw when he was at his peak here with the New York Mets, where there's not a lot of base traffic. He's striking guys out. He's making guys look silly, and it's just clean and easy and dominant. That's not what this was from Kodai Senga. But it was a different level of dominance because it was a Kodai Senga who felt comfortable pitching to contact, felt comfortable allowing the ball to get put into play, trust the defense behind you. Brett Baty made 2 really key double play turns in this game, started some really nice 5-4-3 double plays twice in this game, turning those double plays. So got the help from the defense behind him, but just kind of plodded along. And through the 3 starts that he's had this season, hasn't thrown a ton of pitches, has been really economical. That's what allows him to go deep into these games because the Mets are taking it really easy with Kodai Senga. Had 1 start last year, so you really have to be careful managing his innings and trying to not overdo it. And so you start to get thoughts of him trying to throw a Maddox, trying to take this shutout into the 8th, into the 9th inning. But you have to realize it only is, 3rd start of the season. The Mets are going to be very careful with this. And I don't think we're going to see a fully unleashed Kodai Senga where he is able to go 8, 9 innings, able to throw 95, 100 plus pitches, probably for another, 3 or 4 turns through rotation, I think, before we get there. So it was dominance in a different way for Kodai Senga, trusting the defense behind him, trusting his stuff. He had the ghost fork working, but only 4 strikeouts. But again, just not trying to do too much. Just throwing the ball in the zone, filling up the strike zone, letting these A's batters put the ball into play, and trusting the guys behind you. And you got the defense behind you. Baty, some good plays in the outfield. And so just a really solid start for Kodai Senga and the New York Mets. And let's talk about the offense. Much better. 8 runs here in the series finale. And let's talk about who was originally going to be, I think, what we would be talking about. And there's part of me that wants to make him the player of the game. I would love to hear your thoughts in the live stream comments. Who should be the player of the game? I can think of 2 people that maybe are up for consideration. So would love to hear your thoughts on who the player of the game should be coming out of this game for the New York Mets. But we will classify this as just an offense that found their way late. This Kodai Senga start was really good, and you probably were a little worried that the Mets were going to let it go to waste with the offense struggling through the first 5 innings of this game. But you know who wasn't struggling? How about 6-hitter Luis Torrens, who ends the day 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs? And shout out to Carlos Mendoza. He was clearly kind of pushing some buttons today with the lineup to try to get this offense rolling. Luis Torrens is your number 6 hitter, right? With Senga in the lineup, with Torrens out, he was hitting 9th. Torrens was hitting 8th when he came back. So clearly trying to spark something, doing something different. He had Vientos DH today. There's a righty on the mound in Luis Severino. You could have easily put Jesse Winker in there if you wanted to. If you wanted a right-handed hitting DH option, you could have given Mark Vientos the day off and put Starling Marte out there. So a very interesting decision there by Carlos Mendoza to try some stuff. Vientos as the DH, both Acuna and Beatty in the lineup, Torrens in the 6th spot. And it all worked out for the Mets because Torrens with 3 hits, he got the offense started with that single in the 6th, just taking the ball the other way. That put the Mets in front, and they did not look back from that point. We have the turning point to give out from this game. We have a Player of the Game award to give out. Again, would love to hear who you want to give the Player of the Game award to. I can think of 2 candidates off the top of my head that should get it. But we'll talk about the rest of the Mets offense, the turning point from this game, and give out some hardware here on the other side. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. The fact that Wonderful Pistachios, they're a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. No shells, Wonderful Pistachios, a grab and go snack for ease. How about the satisfying crack of opening each shell? It's like snack meditation. Whether you are running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, the personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. So you stop managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan some long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Back here on a victory edition of the Mets Postcast on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel and the Locked On Mets podcast feed, as the Mets defeat the A's 8-0, get to 10-5 on the season. And we talk about this on the postcast all the time. Continue to take 2 out of 3. And by the time the season is over and by the time we get to August and September, you're going to feel really good about where things are at. And the Mets, through 15 games, have won 10 of those 15 games. That is a 2 out of 3 pace. So all the doom and gloom last night, all the worries about Juan Soto, all the worries about this offense, and we pointed out all the numbers, and the numbers are still not great for the Mets. They came into this game at one point 4 for 51 with runners in scoring position and 2 outs before Torrens hit that single to get the Mets on the scoreboard. So they're struggling. Overall, their runs per game in the National League are towards the bottom. I am not here to paint a different picture than what we have all seen with our own 2 eyes, but this team has still won 10 of their first 15 games. They're 10-5 to start the year, and they just completed their 4th straight series win. So things could be a lot worse. And as I repeatedly say here on these postcasts, it is much better to nitpick after a win with a team that is 10-5 rather than it being the complete inverse. The team that the Mets are going to play starting tomorrow, the Minnesota Twins, are 5-11 on the season, a complete disaster across the board. That could very easily be the fate for the New York Mets, but they have not succumbed to that fate because they have found ways to win these baseball games. And it was a party for everybody once Torrens broke the dam in the 6th. Lindor gets involved in the 7th with an RBI double. Vientos draws a walk with the bases loaded to make it 3-0. You get a gift balk call from the umpires there in the 8th. That makes it 4-0. And then in the 9th, they pour it on, and everybody gets involved. Vientos with an RBI hit. Torrens hits another RBI hit, this time a ground rule double. How about Brett Beatty? His first triple of his career, his first RBI of the season, he gets involved. And then on a fielding error by Jacob Wilson, Beatty is able to score. That makes it 8-0, and that was the offense for the New York Mets. So we talked yesterday about how 1, 2, and 3 in the order went a combined 0 for 9, and that's not going to be a recipe for success for the New York Mets? Well, today Soto went 0 for 3, did draw 2 walks. Alonso went 0 for 4, but you got production from everybody else. I'm looking at the box score here. Nimmo with a multi-hit day. Torrens with a multi-hit day. Everybody 4 through 9 had a hit at least in this game. Nimmo with 2, Vientos with 1 and 2 RBIs, Torrens with the 2 RBIs and a 3-hit day. Beatty, Taylor, Acuna all at least have 1 hit. So if the top 3 guys aren't going to do all the work, you need the bottom part of the order to contribute. Yesterday, that wasn't the case. Today, it was, as the Mets do get production from the bottom part of their order. And so it allows you to make up for Juan Soto going 0 for 3 and Pete Alonso going 0 for 4. Let's talk about the turning point in this game, because it was one inning in particular that set the stage for the Mets to be able to win this one.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Let's go with the 6th inning for this game as our turning point for the Mets, because in the top part, Luis Torrens does put the Mets in front, but it's a 1-0 game. Kodai Senga back out there on the mound. You have to get through those innings clean. You take a lead. Your offense finally put some runs on the board. In this case, it was just 1, but this is where you have to halt any potential response from the A's right then and there. Have the momentum completely in your hand, and that's exactly what the Mets were able to do, because Senga has a shutdown inning, doesn't allow any runs, and then in the 7th, the Mets respond with 2 runs to give themselves a little bit of insurance. So we'll call the 6th inning the turning point. Torrens with the big hit to break things open, and then Senga shutting things down there in the bottom of the 6th. I see Tim in the comments talking about Senga outpitching Sevy. Sevy was getting some strike calls today, and the zone, I think, was consistent across the board for both sides, but that glove side part of the strike zone was being given to Sevy early in this game, which was the inner half to left-handed batters and the outside corner to right-handed batters, both a little bit wider and a little bit higher up in the zone. Sevy was getting those calls, and they were going both ways, but that's what allowed Sevy to really kind of have these Mets hitters off balance. There was I think it was the 2nd inning where the Mets got a leadoff guy on, but then it was 3 straight strikeouts looking in that inning, and that was the inning where you really started to see what the zone was going to look like for this game, where Severino was getting those outside pitches and those pitches a little bit higher up in the zone. But it did go both ways, and Senga took advantage of the strike zone as well. And what more can you say about the Mets being able to get through this series not using a ton of their relievers, right? They were able to really manage the bullpen and still win the series, take 2 out of 3, and feel really good about where things are at. Okay, I don't really know what to do. I'm going to play the little open for the player of the game, and then maybe we can have a conversation of who it should be, because I still have not decided between the 2 guys I want to give the player of the game award to.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Do we give it to Kodai Senga for being the first Mets starter to go 7 innings? I mean, he went 7 scoreless. Do we give it to 6-hitter Luis Torrens for getting the offense started, leading the way for the Mets with 3 hits and 2 RBIs? I mean, you can make a legitimate case for both guys. I don't want to take the cheap way out and give co-player of the game award, so we're going to pick one. I see some people making the case in the comments. I tend to lean your direction. We'll give it to Kodai Senga here. How could you not? 7 scoreless innings. The first Met to take a start into the 7th and complete 7 after David Peterson yesterday went 6 innings. He had 2 starts of 6 innings this season. That's the furthest that anybody had gone before Senga did it today. And this has got to be a real confidence thing, I think, for Kodai Senga and for all of us to see him, even though they're taking it easy with him, he looks himself. He looks like he is in full command of his stuff. I still think the ghost fork will come along, and some of the command things that kind of plagued him in his first start will come along in time, but today was the best start he's had of the season. I think it was the best start we've seen from a Mets starting pitcher this season, and it allowed the Mets to kind of get out of the sluggish start for this game, because they went scoreless through the first 5, and you wondered if the malaise that they were in last night was going to carry over into tonight. But the first 3 games of this 13 games in 13 days for the New York Mets, I guess you could ask for a sweep, but it's hard to pull off a sweep on the road, especially in a brand new ballpark that you've never played in before. You got to learn all those dimensions. The Mets offense breaks out. They score 8 runs. They defeat the A's by a final of 8-0. They get to 10-5 on the season, and they just keep on rolling. They will now try to go for 5 straight series wins to start the season. And I know I probably sound like a broken record for those of you who join me after each of these postcasts, but it is just something that really sticks with me. This is so different than last year. It is so different than the way we felt about this team last season at the start. Felt like they just had to scratch and claw to climb out of the hole that they dug for themselves. And this year, they're scratching and clawing early, and they're scratching and clawing to the tune of a 10-5 record. And oh, by the way, if you looked at the NL East standings, they're there by themselves. A nice one-game cushion over the Philadelphia Phillies, and Atlanta is still struggling at 4-11 to start the year. So we can complain about Soto not hitting the way we want. We can complain about the offense struggling overall. We can long for Jeff McNeil to come back and for Francisco Alvarez to be back and lengthen this lineup. And we can talk about whether or not Brett Beatty should get more opportunities. We can talk about all of that. And it's all fair, and it's all part of covering and discussing and watching this team on a daily basis. But the facts, 4 straight series wins for the New York Mets, 10-5 to start the year. That is a 2 out of 3 win pace the rest of the way. And this is a first-place team through the first 15 games of the season. You take it. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be a W in the win column. And today it was a little bit prettier for the New York Mets, and they took advantage of an A's team whose bullpen hasn't been good all year. They finally got to them, and the defense kind of evaded the A's late. We get to celebrate here on the Mets Postcast. Ryan will have you covered Monday through Friday. Don't worry, nothing's changing there. So he'll have some even bigger picture thoughts for you in the podcast feed and here on the YouTube channel. Probably later on tonight, if not tomorrow morning. I am back with you after the first game of the Twin Series. If you are new here to the Mets Postcast, we would appreciate you hitting that subscribe button, turning on that notification bell. If you are regular listeners to the Locked On Mets podcast, but this is your first time joining us here, welcome. Glad that you're here. Sorry that it took so long. Why don't you come back and join us again tomorrow when we break down the first game of the Mets and the Minnesota Twins. But that will do it for us as the New York Mets make it 4 series in a row. A Kodai Senga masterclass leads the way for the New York Mets, who are now 10-5 and sit in first place alone in the National League East. We'll be back tomorrow to break down the first game of the Mets and the Twin Series. Until then, see you, everybody.